Well, hello again. Today is Tuesday, the 7th of July. It's early in the morning. The little old pooches got me up really early. They do that. They'll come to the bedroom door and they'll sit there and make little grunt noises and all kinds of stuff, telling me it's time to get up and to take them out. So that's what I can't sleep in anymore. Those days are long gone. Anyway, we're going to go out and see what kind of progress we've made on our master cylinder. We now have all of the vacuum lines that we're going to need, the 7/64ths, which we already had, I think it was, and then the 5/32 and the 7/32. So it's 50 foot of each, and that should be enough. If not, I'll just order some more. It doesn't bother me any. We also received our voltage regulator replacement plug. Doesn't that look nice down there? See them nice shiny connectors. And the problem is the colors are out of order. This plug will fit multiple car voltage regulators and the multiple years, and the colors are a little out of whack. And we have two whites here and two yellows, and just one. I'll be eliminating one of the whites, probably snip it off, or I don't know, maybe fold it over. I'm not sure what, but I have to redo the colors in the order in which they're on the voltage regulator. As you can see, the white wire on the new plug is number 2, whereas the white wire on the original is number 1. And then the second one is a kind of a green and red, so we're going to have to move. What I'll do is I'll put it like this. That's the way it has to be, same position here, flat. And it'll be white, then I'll put the green, and then we will put the yellow in the third one. And this last one here will be red, and the only reason I'm going to make it red is so it matches up with the wire coming from the thermostat on the automatic choke. So that's another little chore that needs to be done. Then of course what I'm going to do is try to remove these connectors and then just snip the ends off or snip the wires back. Some of these old wires, you know, after they've sat for years and years, you cut them and strip the insulation back, and they have a lot of corrosion and everything. They're very difficult to solder up. Hopefully I won't have that problem here. Well, as hoped, I went ahead and took this into my buddy, and he cut that nice and smooth and just really slick as can be. And then I brought it back to the house here. I had to do a little bit of extra grinding right here. Now I know that's awful thin, but that's awfully thick steel at the same time. So let's see. I've been taking it on, you know, putting it on, taking it off, shaping it and everything, and then gave it a good paint job when I was done. Let me show you how she fits this part right here. We've got plenty of room, and I'm able to, I'll be able to open up the bail off in this direction. I won't be able to go in the other direction. But once I get that thing down, this baby will go right up. There's plenty of clearance there for it to swing, and I'm kind of happy with that. Now the next thing to do is take our little, I'm going to remove this lid right here, and then I'm going to go ahead and fasten this on here and get it up all the way to the wall, and then we're going to go ahead and cut a chunk out of that right there too. But I don't want, as I said earlier in the last video, I don't want it just hacked out, you know. I want it to have a nice smooth look, so it sort of kind of flows and matches up with this big old piece right here. I wanted something that looked a little bit natural, although it's not, okay? But that's not our priority right now. We're going to set this aside. I'll work on this later. Our priority is not the brace and cutting the brace. It will get done. With or without the brace, the car will run. It will drive. Our priority is getting our brake lines fastened up to the master cylinder from the wheels. That's got to be done before anything else. I think I solved our proportioning valve location problem. Initially, the gas line came in here, and you can see where it went across here and down. Of course, I made it too high, so I had to put these clamps in, you know, to hold it in place, drill new holes. But that left this was a clamp right here that clamped it on. But that left a hole, and that hole has come in very handy, very fortuitous. And here's why. On the other side, is where I'm going to put that proportioning valve. I'm going to raise it up a little bit where we can get to the handle, like so. The hinge will not interfere with it. That left side right there is the inlet. That brass fitting you see there is where the inlet will go. The other side is where the outlet will go. They go right down through there and come out. Let me see, it'll come out where it's supposed to come out. Right in that hole there. Now, you can't get any better than that, right? Now, if all goes well, I'll have to hook up the line before I install this thing on both sides. And then the one line will worm its way on down. This line here on this side will come up and go to the bottom of the master cylinder where the outlet for the rear brakes is. I'll show you that. Now on these double reservoir master cylinders, one hole is larger than the other. And it takes a larger flare nut for the rear brakes. I don't know why that is, but it does. It still takes the 3/16 inch line. You still have to flare it, double flare it, and it goes into here like this, and the line will be coming up from the bottom from that proportioning valve. Now the difference in size between the rear and the front brakes, look at the difference in size in the nuts. Okay, let me put them side by side here. You got to keep that in mind. There's the difference. The other side of the master cylinder is where the smaller line will go in, just like that, okay? So now, the trick is to pull it off. And one more thing for our young novices out there, and guys like me, who have done this quite a bit. You know, I put this line in here, a new line that goes to it, you know, a rubber line down to the vacuum advance on the distributor. But when I did that, I double flared the end of it, put this B nut on there, you know, double flared the end of it, or flared nut, and it just kept wobbling. It just kept going up and down, up and down. I couldn't get it to tighten no matter what I did. I said, man, I really messed that flares up. I'm going to have to practice flaring a lot more, because, you know, I haven't done that much of it in my life. So I contacted Brent and I said, look at there, you know, I've double flared this thing twice and it still won't tighten up. What is the problem here? Is there maybe a problem with the carburetor? It turned out you don't double flare going into the carburetor. And you know, the only thing you basically double flare on a car, with some exceptions, are the gas lines and brake lines. The rest of the stuff is a single flare. I said, well, I didn't know that. So I cut the end off. Single flare, I just flared it once. I didn't use that little black thing. I just stuck it in there to the right height, and then used the point on the clamp. Just clamped it right on down until it just flared open like that. That's all. And now she's tight as a drum, nice and tight, no problem. And I also enabled me to cut down the length of that copper tube and get this thing so it's over the top of this. I don't want it sitting on the top of this. I do know that from past experience, when you run a thin vacuum line over the top of a piece of metal of some kind, eventually it will wear through on the bottom, be kind of hard to spot in some cases, and you lose vacuum, okay? So just a little more information for those of you who someday plan to work on your old Thunderbirds for the first time, or cars for the first time, or old hands like me who don't know much about flaring. You know, one of the reasons I always refer or defer and question Brendan on a lot of stuff that involves cars is he's a man of many talents. Many talents over the years. He's about the same age I am, a little older. He's a little longer in the tooth, you know what I mean? So anyway, he and a buddy of his named Norm, when they were younger, right out of the Army, they used to race stock cars up in the Detroit area. And when you race stock cars, you're constantly working on them, constantly changing this, constantly building that. Your suspension is changed, your engines are changed, your transmissions are changed, gear ratios are changed. And he and Norm eventually became a champion one year. So when you have a man that's involved in stock car racing for several years and ultimately became a champion in the area where he lived, he and his buddy Norm, yeah, I'm going to refer to him on a lot of things. Sometimes I know the answer before I ask the question, but I want to make double sure. You know, it's like getting a second opinion. For those of you who have never, you know, had the opportunity to remove one of these little terminal ends from a plastic holder, it's really easy to do. You just got to take a very small screwdriver. There are slots in this one, which makes it very convenient. I got a slot there. See the little black square slot on top of the connector, on top of the terminal there? Well, the way this thing works is when you shove it in a hole on the connector, that little tab sticking up right there, see that little tab sticking up? Let me zoom in here a little bit, give you a little better shot there. See that little tab sticking up? It once you stick it in, it slips by a ledge inside the plastic, and then it goes click, and then it won't come back out because it catches right here on the edge. So in order to get these things out, you have to bring in your screwdriver from a little small screwdriver, whatever you got, bring it in from here, and you have to push down that lip right there. Push it down flat, not too much, just enough to get the wire out. Because sometimes these things break off, and then there you are, stuck, you know, because the wire goes in, and it'll also just come right back out. So just got to be very careful. I've already rebent this one slightly back up, and I'm going to go ahead and relocate it to another slot. So, you know, there's the little black slots that the screwdriver goes in, just like so. A little tiny jeweler screwdriver is what I use. All you got to do is shove them in, and it'll come out. Let's see if I can do it on the white. The white one's going to have to come out anyway. So let's see if I can do this thing one-handed just to show you how easy it is. I'm just going to take my thumb and push it in there. Hopefully it'll push that tab down. Wiggle it around. Might be a little bit difficult one-handed, but all I'm doing is pushing that tab down to where the wire will come out. Come on, baby, you can do it. Well, she just wants to be cantankerous because I'm filming it. But when it came to the red one at the bottom, I was going to put in a whole new piece of wire, but I decided, we don't need to do that. I'll just go ahead and solder one of these spade connectors on the end. You know, cut it back a little bit. Then run some red heat shrink over the top. Just run this right back into the connector, and then there you go. All I got to do is, I don't have to cut the end off the other one that's out there I already got on the car. So we'll see how it works. But right now it is very hot in this garage, in this shop, and I am calling it a day. My brake line flaring ability has gotten really much better, I think. I've decided that to do this the right way. I wasn't using, you know, you got to kind of lubricate it a little bit with some brake fluid. So I take a little screwdriver here and I just kind of put it on there so it covers the area. Both when I use the this little black thing here, which is the first part of a double flare, I put the brake fluid down in there, as you can see the shiny area in the center. I also put some on top of the a nickel copper brake line as well. And then when I use the clamp, I also put a little bit of that brake fluid around the point here, so you know it slips real good and it doesn't, you know, mess up the metal. I think it turned out really nice. Every one of them now has been turning out just like that. I'm pretty happy. So far so good on the proportioning valve. I've got it mounted in nice and tight. The hole right there was perfect. Great location, which really helped. And we came on around. I put a clamp right there, a 3/16 rubber line clamp, and ran it through one of the original clips, and then brought it on down and hooked it straight into this union down here that was originally on the car. Now I don't know if that was original to the car, because these brake lines here have been replaced all the way back. So matter of fact, I know it's not original to the car, and I'll tell you why. That union is metric. That's why. I just remembered. So, but it works, you know. I got out my metric wrench and put it there, and my 3/8 and put it there, and just tighten it up. We'll just, hopefully that won't leak, which reminds me to tell you that I'm not going to go ahead and put on this panel, this big splash panel, just yet. We're going to drive the car, hit the brakes a few times, let the gas flow through the gas line here, and hopefully there won't be any leaks. I don't want to put the panel all back on, drive it down the road. Next thing I know, I got gas or brake fluid or both leaking out of the bike, and I got to take it all off again. Nah, we're in no big rush. We'll see how it works before we put the panel back on. Now let's look at the proportioning valve from the top. Well, though she be, she looks really good, I think. I wish I had a little cleaner de-rusting down there, but I'd have to tear apart the entire front end of the car to get that done. Hopefully, when I blast it again with the power washer, that might take a lot of it off. I may have missed part of that when I did it last time. I didn't think I did, but you know, when I did it, when I first got the car. And it's screwed in on that side. This is the inlet side that comes up to the master cylinder, which I haven't got on yet. But it comes on around, and I've got it bent up right here to where it's facing straight up, so I've got to make a few adjustments to that. That tape is on there to keep the fitting from sliding all the way back down, and to keep it up there near the flare. So that's what's going on with that so far. Let's take a look at the master cylinder. The master cylinder is mounted in the vise just by the flange right here, and I'll be opening it up and filling it with fluid here and here. And we need to bleed the air out of the bottom down here, just where the plungers are. There's a lot of air there, and this is the rear wheel outlet and the rear brake outlet. And the other side over here, you get a light. Boy, it really got dark in here with that rain. I cannot wait to get this shop wired. I got wifey all pumped up for that. She's ready to go. Just let me do it. Anyway, over here, they sent me as part of the bleeding kit that I had. I don't know where it came from. It may have come with... It didn't come with the master cylinder, that's for sure. Usually it does, but it didn't. But they sent me the wrong size fitting. They sent me this thing right here. It won't even fit in the hole. It won't even go in, so it's no good. Now the one on the bottom, which is larger, that fit okay. So what am I going to do about that? I've got to get this thing bled. Well, we're going to just make our own using an existing fitting that I have and a steel brake line. We'll just screw it in the side there and pretend it's plastic. See, normally they come with these plastic lines. I've got to hook one from down here and then bring it up and put it up here. I'll show you that in a second. Then we start our bleeding process, but you know, since they sent me the wrong fitting, I can't do that, so we'll just have to adapt and overcome. That should solve the problem. All I wanted to do is come from the outlet on the master cylinder. This is for the front brakes, and it'll come around and it'll put any fluid that we have right back in the reservoir. This is what's called bleeding the master cylinder. So that's one. And of course we still have a problem because this plastic line here is too short, and when I get it up here to try to get it across the top, it puts a major kink in the line down here. So this thing is, see it, kinks it right up. So this is basically useless. So what do we do now? Well, we adapt and overcome again. I have another fitting that has a 3/16 hole in it. I'll just make another line from here back up to the reservoir for the rear brakes. Let's get that done. Alright, I think that'll work. I just went ahead and just put a couple of fittings on, bent the lines. I'm glad I got 25 feet of that nickel copper 3/16 brake line. I've used just about, I don't know, I must have used 5 feet of it already, and I haven't even got the front brakes, you know, hooked up yet, so I may have to wind up ordering another roll. But anyway, I think we're good to go. Right now, it's another hot day coming to a close. I am thirsty, I am tired, I am hungry, and we will see you tomorrow. It is the next day, and it is early in the morning, and it is a lot cooler. So I'll tell you what, before we go back to working on that master cylinder, a few issues have come up over wheels, wheel sizes and that sort of thing. I thought I'd go ahead and give you a quick rundown on, you know, rims or wheels. And let's get this thing out here where there's a little more light. The rims on this Thunderbird are 15 inches in diameter. Now if you take your tape measure and you measure diameter as best you can across the center, you'll see that it's measuring out at measures out at right about 16 inches. Well, if it's 15 inches, why am I reading 16 inches? Well, it's easy. You don't measure from the outside edge to outside edge. You measure from about the top of the curve right here, right about the top of the curve, not the bottom of the curve. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Right about the top of the curve, over here to the top of the curve right here. That's a curve, so it's not going to be a straight down and straight up. So what we're going to do is measure right about from there to right about there, and we get about 15 inches. See it? There we go. 15 inches. That's how that's measured. Now the bolt pattern on a 4-bolt wheel will be, or any odd or any even number wheel, 4 or 6, or I guess there's even 8 and 12. I don't know. There's some pretty big wheels out there with a lot of holes in them. But on an even number wheel, you just measure from the center to the center, and they're straight across from one another. Okay, now on a odd number set of holes like I have right here, you don't measure from the outside to the outside. You measure from the outside of one to the center of the other. So we've got 4.5 on the bolt pattern, and you see right here, we'll go from the outside there to the inside right about there. Let me see, let's try it over here. Yeah, right about, see, we got about 4.5 inches to the center of that hole right there. Okay, so that's the way that's done. Even numbers, center to center, odd number holes in your wheel, outside to the nearest one, and then that would be the outside from here to here or here to here, outside edge to center. All right. To determine the width, all you have to do is measure from inside the bead wall to inside the bead wall, and the one for the 66 Thunderbird is 5.5 inches. So we'll measure from here to here, and there it is. Let me get it down there. It's 5.5 inches. Okay, so good to go on that. Now one more thing on the tire size. If it says P225, P215, P235, whatever it says on your tire size when you buy the tire, or what it says on the car, P means it's in metrics, and it means that the three numbers, 225, like a P225 would be 225 millimeters. If it's a P205, it's 205 millimeters. So those are the tires I've got. I've got P215s. So my tires are, I'm talking about the tread, are 215 millimeters. That's the tread, okay? The width on the tire of the tread. Okay, now one more thing. The last number on a tire that you might see, it'd be a slash and then a number, like a 70, 75, a 65, slash 65. For instance, I've got P215 slash 75s. Now that's a ratio. That's a ratio between the height of the tire and the width of the tread. So if I have 75, so my height of the tire is 75% of its width. It's really simple. They go into these long explanations on the internet. I don't know why. All you got to know, if I had a 65, a slash 65, the height of the tire would be 65% of the width of the tread. It's easy to do. There's one more thing called an offset. Let me get this in the right position here. The offset is measured from right here, what they call the hub, to the center of the wheel. Now what's so important about that? Well, if this thing here, if you go downtown, you say, hey, look, I want to get rid of these old wheels. I want to get a nice new set of chrome jobbies, something fancy, black types, or whatever. If this thing here is not in the proper position relative to the center of the wheel, then what you're going to have is you're going to put that on your car, and whenever you turn your wheel, the tire's going to hit the fender. or if it's set the wrong way, the opposite direction, you're going to turn your wheel, you're going to wind up hitting the inner fender inner fender splash guards there, or the inner fender well is what I call it. Or it'll run around and hit the, it could even hit the tie rod links. So this thing has to be in the proper position. And if it's toward the front, it's positive. If it's toward the rear, it's negative. So it'll be a negative offset or a positive offset. Make sure you go downtown, you pick up a set of chrome wheels. Make sure that, I mean, they look great, man. They look great on my car. And make sure the guy understands what offset is. You know, it goes on the car, too far in, going to bang against the back. Too far out, because of where this thing is positioned, up or down, it's going to wind up hitting the fender. Okay, so that's it. Now, all this information is available on the internet. You can find it all. That was just a quick down and dirty, and it may not even be 100% accurate, but I'm trying to get as accurate as I can. One more thing, by the way. You see how these things right here are right up against the wheel? There's no space right there at all. There and there, all along here. Right up against, flat, no airspace at all. The drum brake wheels for your 64, or the rear of the 60, or you may have one from a 64 that's on your car, you don't even know it. And if you got a 65 or 66, there'll be a big space here. This thing here will actually be away. There'll be maybe a ½ inch, no, not quite a ½ inch, maybe a ¼ of an inch of airspace down here. It won't be right up against the wheel. So that'll indicate drum brake wheel, whereas this one is for the 66 and the 65, which has the calipers, and in order to make room for that caliper, they had to take that thing and push it up against there and eliminate that space. So now you know. One last thing, I discovered that by digging around, I discovered that the 1968 Ford Galaxy came in both all drum brakes, or you could also, I guess it was an option, you could get the disc brakes in the front. And the wheels will likely fit the 65 and 66 Thunderbird. The reason being is the tire size is exactly the same, and it does have those front disc brakes. So I don't know, that's just, we're going to check into that a little bit deeper, but it sure looks like it's going to work. I'll tell you what, you know, there's no big hurry. I'm not going anywhere soon. Since we're on the wheel, let's just stay on it for a few more minutes. Here is the area that had all that pitting in it, you know, from the rust. I got quite a bit of it out, but there's still quite a bit of it there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rough this all up. I've got it all sanded out. I took the wire brush to it and got every bit of any possible rust that may be down in the holes. I'm going to take this little sanding drum here, and I'm going to kind of rough it up. I won't be able to get down in the holes too much, but I'm just going to rough it up back and forth. And we're going to go ahead and a couple of our subscribers, you know, our commenters said, we'll get some JB Weld and put in there. Well, I already knew that. Quite a while back, I bought this JB Weld that's is steel impregnated epoxy by JB Weld, and that's what we're going to use on this. We're not going to use a standard JB Weld. This is what I patched the holes in the trunk with, if you remember, those tiny little holes. So we'll go ahead and mix it up on a plastic thing that I have. It's an empty little box. That's all. I use these things like crazy. When they're no good, I chunk them away. Then I'm going to scoop them up. I'm going to take this here putty knife, and I'm just going to lay that stuff down in there. It only takes a few minutes for the stuff to dry, but it takes 4 to 6 hours for it to harden up. Well, that's it. She'll sit there now for, I'll probably leave it all night long, let it harden up. Tomorrow I'll come out and sand it down. Anyway, it's coffee time. When I get done with my coffee, I'll come back in, we'll hit that master cylinder, and we'll wrap this video up. Finally, we're back to the master cylinder. All I did was those plastic lines. I went ahead and cut them down to length and then stuck them on the end of these wires, or these tubes here. Because what we're going to do, now they don't go all the way down and plug up. They just kind of hang about 7/8 of the way in. I could also just adjust them back up if I wanted to, just by bending the tube up a little bit. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to fill both of these chambers, these reservoirs, with .3 brake fluid right here. I got 2 containers of it, that one and this one. And then once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and take this punch. You can use a Phillips screwdriver or whatever. I happen to like this because it's about the right size. And I'm going to slowly push that thing in, slowly. You don't ram it in, okay? Don't do that. We're going to slowly push it in there for about 1 inch. That's about it. And then we're going to let it out. And then what's going to happen is you're going to see air bubbles coming from down here. We're going to push the air out is what we're doing. On the bottom down here where the plunger is, that's what's up the other end of this mess right here. The plunger is going to go in, and it's going to push air out through here and down into the reservoir. You'll see the bubbles coming up. And then when I slowly release it, it'll suck fluid down into the plunger. It takes about 8 or 10 times of doing that, slow and easy. You push it in, let it out. Push it in, let it out. But you want to push it in about 1 inch beyond this point right here. It'll probably go into about that yellow point. I don't know. I have to wait and see. Anyway, you're going to see bubbles coming out. And then when we get all done where there's no bubbles at all, I push it in 2 or 3 times. There's no bubbles at all. And that means air is completely out of the master cylinder. Now, there's another way to do it on this baby. There is a bleed valve over here on the front. Now, I could do it that way too. And I talked this over with Brendan. I said, you know, what's the point of doing a bench bleed if we have a bleed valve on there? It does the same exact thing. He said, yeah, but it's always a good idea to do the bleed valve. Well, I was going to do it anyway. I mean, to do the bench bleed, rather. I'm going to do it anyway. I was going to do it anyway just to show everybody how it's done. Again, there's a million videos on YouTube to show you how to do this with various types of master cylinders. So let's get to it. Let's fill up the reservoirs. Okay, here goes. Slow and easy. Keep your eye on that, on those lines there. I'll keep my eye on the plunger thing. See the bubbles coming out already? Boy, this thing is hard to push in. Man, harder than I expected. Slow and easy on the push. I may have to get a different kind of tool, a little easier to push than this thing. Alright, I got me a Phillips screwdriver with a better handle on it. That other thing was kind of hurting my hand anyway. Okay, let's do it again. Keep doing it. We're going to go in. See the air bubbles coming through? Getting those air bubbles out. And we let it, and then it sucks the fluid back in. Pushes the air out. Don't overdo it on the push. Only about 1 inch is what you're supposed to go in. So let me go ahead and keep pushing the air out until we get to the point where there's no bubbles at all. As you can see, we used up quite a bit of the fluid so far. You know, what we're doing is we're filling up that plunger down at the bottom, the entire length of that thing. See it down there, that round tube? So it's going to take fluid out of the master cylinder. So let's go ahead and fill it back up a little bit. And get it back up to about right where it was. The other side's not too bad, but I think I'll just leave that for now. There's not much there that's been used. So let's keep plunging it a little bit more. We're just about done. All the air bubbles are out. We're doing good, except for there's a few right here, and this is the rear brake reservoir right here. You can see there's a little bubble right there. There's a couple of bubbles that don't want to cooperate. So what I've done is I hooked a hose up to that bleed valve right here, and this rubber hose comes around and goes into this little container. I'm going to try to bleed it that way and get rid of that little bit of air. Incidentally, this is a stupid 10 millimeter. I hate this mixing of American or SAE with metric. It just drives me crazy. Okay, let's see if I can't plunge it in there, see if I can't get rid of the rest of it. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but we're going to give it a try. Take a look at our jar. Let's take a look at this right here, I guess. Yeah, I see a couple bubbles that came up out of there. And of course the level of fluid is going down like it's supposed to. Alright, I think that's going to be about it. Now that we have the master cylinder bled, we're going to go ahead and get this stuff up out of there, and then put the lid on it, and we're going to put it in the car and bolt it up to the brake booster. Then I will be removing you know, this one here, that goes to the rear brakes and hooking it up to the line coming from the proportioning valve. Now the question is, when I take that fitting out down below there, that fluid is going to run everywhere. How do I keep that from happening? Well, before I got a chance to even ask old Brendan if he had any ideas, he had an idea. It's an old trick. I never heard of it, but it makes perfect sense. Let me show you what it is. He said, take some saran wrap or some, imagine some other kind of clear wrap you got, and put it over the top before you put the lid on. If I can find my lid, I don't even know what I did with the lid. Where's the lid? Okay, here's the lid. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to prevent air from going down in there, and I'm going to seal that baby up nice and tight with this bail, and it should. Some of it might drip out, but not as much if we didn't have this seal there. So let's see if that's going to work. I'm really curious about this one. I had never heard of it. Okay, Brendan, I hope that's what you mean, because what you see is what you got. Let's take it over and put it on the booster. Well, there she is, folks, all hooked up. The back brakes are now hooked up to the master cylinder. The master cylinder has been bled, and I'm just going to leave this right here because now we have to do the front brake lines, and we'll get to that in the next video. I think we've done enough with this one. Let me show you how we're going to do it. I'll give you a quick run over here. On the side of the master cylinder where that other bleed hose is still connected, a line will come out, and it will go. I'm not sure where I'm going to be placing this T, somewhere on the firewall, but the line will come out, and it'll come over, and it'll go into here like so. And a line will go out this way, and a line will go out that way, and I'll take those 3/8 inch. Once I get the thing screwed in there, I'll take the 3/8 or the 3/16 inch clamps that I bought, and I'll put one here and one here, which will hold this thing in place on the firewall somewhere. I'm not sure where. We'll figure that out. But a line will go out to one wheel, the driver's side wheel, and the other, which is a shorter run, and this one here will go all the way across and down to the passenger side wheel. And then once we get those clamps on, we tighten everything up, we're ready to bleed the entire system. So that's what's going to happen next time. I may have some of it already done by the time we start. Like I said, it's very, very hot in here again. God, I got to get out of here. I'm dying of the heat. So until next time, I hope I covered everything. I hope I was 100% right on most of it, almost all of it. Hope you learned a couple of things. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, just go thumbs down. I mean, I give thumbs down to videos all the time, so it doesn't bother me in the least. Anyway, until next time, this is John.